Hello and welcome to New Filmmakers Los Angeles. My name is Danny De Lillo and I'm delighted to be joined from Los Angeles to London with Farah, who is here with her fantastic film, The Present. Let's take a look at the clip.
لازم تاون.
I need toilet paper, lemons. What we have here?
Security chief, move now.
Farah, I'm so delighted to have you here. I'm sorry we can't do this in a studio in person, but I'm glad we're still able to do this. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. I'm sorry we couldn't do this in person, but here we are.
Next time. We were in a little, green room moment before this interview, and Farah, I'm in love with this film. I can't stop thinking about it. It still will forever be in my heart and my mind. And one of the most important films that I think we've seen in recent times, particularly shine a light on Palestine. For those that haven't seen it, tell us a brief synopsis of your film.
Well, it's a simple story. It's about a hardworking Palestinian man who goes on a shopping trip to buy his wife an anniversary gift, and he goes with his young daughter, Yasmin. But a simple shopping trip, when you're transported to the landscape of checkpoints and roadblocks and soldiers, is not so simple. Basically. Yeah. So I mean, it's actually about, at the end of the day, someone wanting to live a life with the freedom to go and come as he pleases in his daily movements, like any one of us in the world, but can't. So
I think what was so powerful is that this family was like any loving father for their loving child, trying to get on and do daily things that most people take for granted. And you showed the hurdles in such a way that was just so simplified, yet most people wouldn't think that in their daily lives this could even be a problem, right? Magnificent story, just a love story of a family. I mean, it's a sad question to ask, but where did the inspiration come for you in creating this particular project?
Yes, so I am Palestinian by origin, born, raised, educated in the UK, but Palestinian. And I've been to Palestine many times. And the inspiration was, it's based on my own personal experience at these checkpoints, as well as observing other Palestinians at these checkpoints and discussing with Palestinians who live this kind of cruel, perverse reality day in and day out. Very specifically, there is a young man I've gotten to know over the years in Hebron, and he lives on a road where about 80 meters from his house is a checkpoint, very similar to the one in the film. And for him and his mother, no matter where they want to go, who they want to see, what they want to get, they have to go through this checkpoint. So sometimes it's 2, 3, 4, 5 times a day. It's absurd. I mean, so his particular story is where the seed was planted of this particular of the film, but it is based on obviously the wider experiences and like I said, discussions and yeah.
Firstly, I was mesmerized by your cast, like mesmerized, like just this, father and daughter and just mom. I just like, wow. They told so much in their expressions without saying a word. It was powerful. How did you go about bringing your cast together?
So the actor who plays Yusuf, the father, his name is Saleh Bakri, and he's actually a very seasoned actor. He's actually been in a number of rather successful feature films that have even won at like Cannes and in Locarno, and I just kept seeing him in my mind when we were writing the script. And I co-wrote the script with Hind Shafani. So the story is mine, co-wrote it with Hind Shafani. And she said to me, who do you picture? And I said, Saleh Bakri. And the world conspired because she knew him. So she said, wow, I know him. I can put you in touch. And she did. And he liked the script very much. He liked the simplicity of it. And he's Palestinian, he gets it. And I needed someone who really understood at his core what this film was about. And so I didn't need to audition him. He's who I wanted for the role. And I was touched that he would play Yusuf in my short, in that sense. Whereas Mariam Kenj, who acts his daughter Yasmin, she's a completely untrained actress, or she's not an actress when I found her, I met her. And again, the world conspired. I was with her aunt. I happen to know her aunt. And I said to her, I'm looking for an 8-year-old who's ideally in Palestine, speaks good Arabic, etc., etc. And she's like, what about my niece? And the funniest part was I said, ideally, I'd like her to look like her father in the film. And she shows me a picture, and I was like blown away, because she actually looks more like Saleh Bakri than she does her own father, which was nuts. I was like, but can she act? And she's like, I think she can, but you have to meet her. So I met her, and my instincts told me she was the right one. She just had this incredible emotional intelligence. She's a very smart girl. Of course, she's absolutely beautiful, very expressive eyes, but she had this confidence with strangers, with adults, and at the same time, like I said, emotional intelligence that the role really required. So she was 8 years old. She'd never been on she'd never acted. She played an extra on a film because, funnily enough, another coincidence, her father was being brought on as the production designer on the film, but I had no idea that they were related. Wow. And yeah, complete crazy. So she has been on sets before, but she'd never acted, and now apparently she's got a bit of the bug since the film, which is great. So again, it just worked.
It was, yeah, of course, your lead actor was just, phenomenal. I've seen him in quite a few different things, and actually I forget what I've seen him because he always feels so different in every role that he plays. I'm like, is that it? Oh, it is him. And I'm so glad that it's always great to bring in someone new, a new up and coming, actress as well. I love that you found her and you found that synergy, and it works so well. I was curious when you were, watching the film. Firstly, it was, aside from the difficulties of the checkpoints and that, it was so lovely to see this beautiful part of the world as well in the film. It was gorgeous landscapes, and I was like, wow, this is just such natural beauty that was there in the film. But I think at the same time, I was just curious, how on earth did you film this and create those checkpoints and all of that stuff? And was there any kind of limitations with that? What was the journey like in terms of locations?
So I really, of course, wanted to film in Palestine, just to ensure the right, topography and backdrop and set and actors and accents and all of that. But of course, you're choosing to now shoot a film in essentially occupied territory, where militarily occupied territory. So of course, making a film is hard enough, under normal circumstances. But then you add the extra element of, oh, okay, could we be stopped at any moment, and the zoning, and where can we film, where can we not film, who do we have to take permits from, can we take permits from them? And one of the craziest things from my end was, I don't know if you remember, but scene 2 of the film is one particular checkpoint where there were hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people.
Yes.
That's actually a real checkpoint. So
wow.
Yeah, so it's almost documentary, that scene, if you like. The only fiction was our protagonist, Saleh Bakri, our actor. Everybody else in that were real Palestinians going to work at the, I say the crack of dawn, even earlier than dawn, from like 3 a.m. all the way up to 7, 8 a.m. in that horrible checkpoint. It's an infamous checkpoint in Bethlehem called Checkpoint 300. And I really felt quite strongly about filming there. And I thought, I don't have the budget, nor do I think that we can bring in the authenticity of trying to replicate it. So let's go in guerrilla style. And we didn't even have permits for that. And I have a whole philosophical perspective of who do you even ask for permission to film such a monstrosity? We had to be very careful because, of course, the military were around the corner. And so we knew like how far we could go before we were in their sort of line of vision. And that was pretty overwhelming, but it was the most rewarding scene to have filmed. And we didn't have any lighting. We went with 2 cameras, 2 cameramen, keep a low profile. I was the only female running around sort of directing and then hiding again. So it was pretty nuts. And then the other checkpoint that was for the rest of the film, we fabricated that. But the thing about the checkpoints there is there's over 100 checkpoints all over the West Bank. That's not in Israel. That's the occupied territory, the sort of remaining 22% of historical Palestine. And each checkpoint looks different. They're not sort of identical at all. They all have different looks and feels. And so I kind of sketched that one based on the checkpoint that I mentioned to you earlier, of which my friend lives on the road with. So with the turnstile and the metal detector, that was my inspiration, if you like, in terms of the checkpoint. And I sketched it out. I'm the worst drawer in the world. But I showed it to the production team. I was like, right, this is it. And I had loads of pictures of checkpoints that I had physically actually been at as well. Like I had, so like I want this and that and so forth. So it was so authentic. The crazy part is that the locals, the indigenous Palestinians in the area, actually thought a real checkpoint had been erected. And yeah, right. And I smile. It's not funny, but it was a great job. It means like, So that was pretty nuts. But there was a whole period where people would come and then want to turn their cars around, or they thought it was checking. I kept saying, no, go tell them it's not real. It's not real. Because of course there were the soldiers as well, and the weapons and the, but the good thing is it means we did a good job in that sense.
100%. Wow. That's it. I mean, this is such a, honestly, just your journey of making and creating this film and the risk that you took to make it as well. It's incredible. It's actually incredible. I mean, I imagine some of those were the challenges, of course, in which you did. Not to mention, one of your biggest stars of the film was a fridge, which probably was not easy to deal with. But what were kind of? I mean, I'm sure the checkpoint situation was challenging. Was there any kind of production stuff that because you didn't really have, like, you had to get that shot. I mean, you didn't have. It was like not a case of coming back and doing it again. You really had to get it right. What was some of the biggest challenges you had in making the film?
Oh my God, where do I start? Probably the biggest challenge was the fact that I was personally sleeping around 2 hours a day. I just could not sleep at night, which meant that I was coming to set completely wired. And of course, so it's quite overwhelming in that sense. And there was the things like I mentioned, is this kind of shadow above. Like we had different cast and crew that had different permits, so it meant some had to go through checkpoints to get to work, and then timing and for example 2 days before shoot, if you remember the muscle guy in the shop, I wasn't very happy with, I hadn't managed to cast the right person, to be honest, and I ended up actually in gyms in Bethlehem. You just can imagine, in the little town of Bethlehem. And I'm running around gyms at 11 at night, trying to find myself like a muscle guy. and I found one, but literally 2 days before. And then the crazy part was he's never acted. He it was like me saying, look, I think you're the right person. Can we have a conversation?
Perfect, yeah.
And then on the first day of shoot, we're all supposed to be there at 6 a.m. and he's just not there. And 3 hours later, I was like having a nervous breakdown, and he finally answered the call, and he was still asleep, and it was like, and he came and he apologized profusely. He just didn't quite, I think, understand, like, you can't be late to this. And he didn't realize it was a film, and so there was so many things. So many different stories I could tell you, putting out fires and dealing with things. But overall, it was actually an incredible experience in the sense that, we weren't stopped. We weren't like, nothing went terribly, terribly wrong. It wasn't like it suddenly poured down in with rain, or it suddenly, in the bigger scheme of things, it went smoothly enough. Like, for example, at that checkpoint I mentioned, that was a real checkpoint. We had a whole story. If we were stopped, what are we going to say? And what if they take our cameras? And so thank God, nothing.
Very well, though. Give credit to you and your team. You articulated it. It felt like a very, very well done film. It really came across that way as well. This is, again, it's actually one of the most emotional films that I've seen, in a way that I feel the rest of the world don't see enough light upon. We don't really see this experience enough, and I'm so glad that you shone a light on this beautiful, loving family from Palestine, and just articulating beyond what we see in the media, a loving family just trying to get by, and just trying to live their life. And I'm so grateful that you did that. I'm so curious though for you, because I think one of the things that you said you wanted to have, obviously, was to be authentic. For you as a, you know, as a director, how did you work with your actors in this sense? Like, are you quite hands-on? Do you let them play? Of course, you know, he was from Palestine too, so there's an element where he can understand from that point. But how is your process?
So with Saleh, what's interesting is, like I mentioned, he's a seasoned actor. So he's far more experienced than me. I mean, you know, in that sense, this is the first film I've directed myself. So I had to be very, I think, careful, but like that when I directed him, I was offering something of value, you
Mhm.
know. Um, so I with him, I allowed him to embrace, of course, the role. And I think in his essence, because I needed someone at his essence who understood. And you've got to see, like, he's on screen pretty much for 24 minutes, you know, for the full 24
Yeah,
minutes.
yeah.
Um, so I really needed someone who could play that extremely authentically, and have that dignity, you know, that the role required, and that intensity. And Salah has that. He brings that to most of the roles he plays, actually. So I didn't need to over direct. We'd always have our little sort of chat just before a scene, you know, and I just tell him what, you know, as a director, what I felt like my intention was with this particular scene, and you know, just remember that, you know, in this moment, this, that, and the other. And you know, Saleh, you know, sometimes he frustrated me, sometimes I frustrated him, you know, but the baby was born and you see it
Mhm.
on the screen, you know,
Mhm.
so much so that, you know, we're collaborating on my first feature film. So, and
Mhm.
he's, you know, he's already on board to play the main protagonist. So it worked. But in the process, we had to get to know each other in that sense. You know, what does he want from his director as well as what I want from my actor?
Mhm.
So I was careful. I didn't want to over direct someone who I know is far more seasoned than I am. Um, Whereas Miriam, you know, like I said, she'd never been on screen, and I would have to sort of just look. I'm a mother. I have kids. I love kids, and I know how to deal with kids. And I would just talk to her honestly, and explain to her the importance of a scene, or what her character, who she is, and what she's feeling. And I would, you know, try to rein in on her empathy. You know, this idea of, like, you know, if Saleh was your father and he was sitting there, what would you feel? You know, we'd have those discussions. And like I said, she was just so emotionally intelligent.
Yeah.
She got it, you know. um and so, look, sometimes, you know, we'd be I'd be having a shot and it's going so well, and you know, and then she'd look at the camera and you're like, no, you know. I'm like, no. Or you know, there's a scene, and it's going so well, and then she turns, she goes, my eyes are, and I'm like, oh, you know. Not like, you don't see any of that, but there is shots where I'm
Oh,
like, damn it, we knew, you know. But
oh,
in the end, she did such an awesome job, and I had the patience to deal with it in that
yeah.
sense, as a
Oh,
mother.
you're a mother. Yeah, exactly. I was gonna say, like, you know, um, I mean, I can't get over your film, Brian. I can't get over it's your first film you directed. It's baffling to me. You know, but I'll believe you. But
I'm lying.
no, no. But I still have tears in my eyes, like right now, just thinking about the film and there's certain scenes, and just how just awful it was. This man just trying to take this fridge across on one side, and this the audacity and how he was treated and all of those things, and like, oh my goodness me. And I just want to know, for you personally, what did you want your audience to take from your film? What do you want them to learn about it? Because I knew a lot about, you know, Palestine. I'm curious. I'm a historian. I like to know about things. But as soon as I stopped watching your film, I went and just watched a bunch of like hours of just Palestine. I wanted to educate myself even more. Um, and that's
Awesome.
what it did for me. And it also made me feel emotionally connected to these, you know, gorgeous human beings that you know, have to go through struggles today. That was my journey. But for you personally, what did you kind of want universally for your audience to take from your film?
Well, first I would say that, you know, when we look at this family and this father and his daughter, um, they're a microcosm. Like we said, it's a very personal story of a loving father and his daughter, but they are reflective of, obviously, a much bigger, you know, dynamic, and of millions of Palestinians who are living under military occupation and apartheid. I mean, the separate road system that you see does exist. This isn't fiction or fabrication. And so for me, of course, as a filmmaker, I want to give audiences an emotional experience, and I want it to do. I mean, any good film really should give audiences an emotional experience, but I also want people to really contemplate, what it feels like, what it is like for Yusuf and Yasmin to live such a life, and I want audiences to ask, would they accept such a thing for themselves, because
Yeah.
it is a fiction, but
Mhm.
it is based on a cruel reality on the ground that does exist. So, I want my films to do what director Alessandro Inarritu said when he said cinema must try raise the global social conscience.
Yes.
I want my films to do that, and I hope if the present does that in any shape, form, or fashion. You've just said you went on and started
Yeah.
finding out information. That makes me so happy. That makes me so happy.
It would not. I mean, honestly, and I just think it's such again, it's such an important film. It's a film that will stay with me forever, and and I'm just so grateful that you made this story. Now, what is a great celebration too, this obviously was with New Filmmakers LA in partnership with the Academy of Motion Picture Arts and Sciences, with an in focus on cinema from the Middle East. How special is it to be part of that whole component?
That was awesome. Honestly, what a great experience. Again, I wish we could have all been in person, because I
Yeah.
think, especially with New Filmmakers LA, that whole dynamic and those very private, personal, meetings and discussions with all those, industry heavyweights in so many ways, was very, very unique. And then, of course, the Q&A sessions and the selection of the films and the filmmakers. Honestly, I thought it was super well organized, especially since you had to pivot online as well. And it was just a really, really unique experience. And what I learned was actually really valuable on all those calls and all those conversations and panels. And so, other than the time difference that killed me,
Oh, I know, we're awful.
other than that,
Yeah.
honestly, so valuable, really so valuable. And I so appreciate, the film having been, selected and meeting your whole team and the platform you guys are trying to give filmmakers. I mean, it's really something. It's a lot of, obviously the film is screened at some amazing festivals, and very grateful for all the festivals that managed to pivot and all of that. But very few managed to pull off the networking and the the educational, if you like, elements, and the informational elements as well, and bringing in such high caliber
Well,
individuals. So
we can do it without you making films, so it helps, but listen, I am so excited for your journey next, and I can't, again, like, this is amazing. If this is your first directorial piece, then wow, boy, we're in for a great, wonderful journey ahead with your direction. What is next for you?
So yeah, I'm working on my first feature. It's in development. It's a authentic, character-driven drama thriller, bit of a love angle, inspired by true events, set in the landscape of Palestine. But it has sort of multicultural characters. The dialogue's around 60-70% English and the rest Arabic. And I'm really excited about it. Like I mentioned, Saleh Bakri's on board,
Yes.
yeah, that's where we're at. So hopefully my first feature film is what I'm working on, and it's a script that I wrote, and I hope to direct soon.
Yeah, so exciting. Well, listen, thank you for bringing the present to us. It was an absolute pleasure to have you part of our film festival, and a joy to have your film. And we can't wait to see your feature. But thank you very, very much. It's so great when you have a filmmaker that can shine a light on a part of the world and a story we need to hear about. So thank you very much.
Thank you so much.